Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive, where we're, taking a really close look at the massive boom in AI data centers right now.
Yeah, and the absolute panic surrounding them. I mean, the terrifying headlines about the energy grid collapsing.
Exactly, because usually when you think about resources, like you look at a fuel gauge on your dashboard, and there's this comforting expectation of simple math, subtraction, basically.
Right, you have 10 gallons of gas, you drive, the needle
Yeah,
drops.
from F to E. It's clean, it's linear, it's totally predictable. But we are looking at a landscape today that is constantly mutating. The math just stops working, and nowhere is that broken math causing more absolute panic than with AI data centers.
Oh, without a doubt.
So to figure out what's real and what's just noise, we are pulling from a couple of great sources today. We've got an analytical piece on historical tech panics, and we're looking at a transcript featuring Molly Taft, a climate and energy reporter from Wired.
Her on-the-ground reporting is incredibly revealing.
It really is. And our mission today is to essentially separate the manufactured rage bait from the genuine structural issues happening on the ground. So you can actually track where the world is headed without just feeling overwhelmed.
Right, because the scale of what's happening post-ChatGPT is, well, it's unprecedented. I mean, data centers aren't new. College campuses have them for decades.
Right.
But the LLMs, the large language models, they require vastly beefier servers. They run much hotter, and they demand massive amounts of cooling and electricity.
Which brings us to the core bottleneck. The tech companies are in this furious AI race, but connecting to the traditional electric grid, that takes years.
2 to 4 years, easily. The grid moves at the speed of government permitting. And in the tech world, a 2-year delay isn't just an annoyance. It's an existential threat. If you miss a hardware generation, your model is dead on arrival.
So they just don't wait. Which brings us to the Elon Musk example in Memphis. To bypass the grid delays for his XAI project, the one running Grok, he built the Colossus One campus using something like 35 natural gas generators.
Yeah, and these aren't, the little backup diesel generators behind a grocery store.
No, not at all. These are aeroderivative turbines. They're basically jet engines bolted to the ground.
Literally. They are massive, they're loud, and normally a construction site might rent one at a time. He brought in dozens and just started running them continuously.
And the location makes this so much more than a tech story. He put this in Boxtown, which is a historically black neighborhood in Memphis that already has some of the highest asthma rates in the country from past industrial pollution.
Right, and what's fascinating here is how he allegedly managed this. The reporting indicates he utilized a debatable loophole in the Clean Air Act to avoid the stringent air permits usually required for something this massive.
Basically avoiding the major public hearings. And now the NAACP is suing over a similar move he's making in Mississippi. But the cascading effect is what's really wild. It's not just a rogue Elon Musk thing. Anthropic, the AI lab that constantly brands itself as the ethical good guy company.
Yeah, the safety-focused ones.
Right. Well, they are now renting space inside that exact same Colossus campus.
Which proves the brute force strategy works. And other tech giants are watching this closely. Because of these grid delays, tech companies are scrambling and acting increasingly like private energy utilities.
Which is a terrifying thought if the AI bubble bursts, because a natural gas plant is built to run for 30 years. Are we locking in decades of emissions just so a tech company can get a 6-month lead on a competitor?
That is the big speculation right now. What happens to planetary emissions when they just supercharge private fossil fuel demand?
Okay, but hold on. I want to push back on this narrative just a little bit. If these companies are just building big, noisy industrial buildings like automobile factories or steel mills, which we've had for a century, why are people reacting like this is some sci-fi apocalypse?
That is the perfect question. And to understand that, we actually have to look away from the physical buildings and look at the infrastructure of our media. It's about how this information is packaged and sold in the rage economy.
Let's get into that, because our sources bring up this quote from Herbert Simon back in 1971. He said, "A wealth of information creates a poverty of attention."
It's brilliant. Information is infinite now, so human attention is the only scarce commodity left. And digital media relies on capturing that attention through what we call the volume mandate.
Right. They need click volume. They need algorithms tracking exactly how long your thumb pauses on the screen to sell ad inventory in real-time programmatic auctions.
Exactly. And not all emotions sell equally. Low arousal states, like feeling calm or understanding a nuanced topic, they don't generate engagement. High arousal emotions do. Fear, existential threat, Moral outrage.
It's an amygdala hijack. When you
Yeah.
see a headline saying an AI data center is going to drink all your town's water, it triggers an evolutionary survival instinct. You can't look away. It's not even clickbait anymore. It's rage bait.
And then you have the ratchet effect. Audiences build a tolerance to the alarmism. So last year's concern has to become today's existential threat just to get the same amount of traffic.
It creates this massive commercial bias against true progress because actual tech progress is usually slow and boring. It's like trying to make a viral TikTok out of a tree growing. No one watches that. But if you tell them the tree is secretly plotting to suck the oxygen out of their neighborhood, millions of views.
Exactly. The algorithm pushes the plot, not the photosynthesis. A real-world, statistical, reality-like engineers getting a 4% efficiency gain in server nodes is fundamentally unclickable.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Is this media manufactured panic a new phenomenon? Because our sources say absolutely not. There's a perfect historical blueprint for this.
Oh, the 1999 internet power panic is identical.
Yes. Back in May 1999, Forbes published a report claiming that a single web search used as much energy as running a 60-watt light bulb for an hour. And they predicted the internet would eat half the U.S. power grid by 2010, half the grid.
And their proposed solution was literally dig more coal.
Unbelievable.
But look at the reality. Between 2010 and 2018, global data center workloads spiked by a staggering 550%. But their energy consumption only rose by 6%.
Wait, really? A 550% increase in work, but basically flat energy growth. How did they pull that off?
Through what the industry calls quiet tech solutions. There were three main ones. First was virtualization. Software basically allowed multiple virtual servers to run on one single physical machine. It raised utilization from a wasteful 5% up to 80% or more.
So they weren't just leaving machines idling.
Right. Second was hyperscale architecture. They stopped using inefficient office server closets and built custom cooling loops and centralized power delivery. And third was silicon efficiency. Chips like GPUs and TPUs delivered exponentially more calculations per watt, following Dennard scaling.
See, the media ignores this because tech companies actually hate wasting expensive power. Profit incentives drive this quiet, exponential engineering optimization.
Precisely. And for you listening right now, think about how much you rely on the internet today. You get to enjoy it precisely because engineers solve those problems without collapsing the grid.
Which leads to this recurring flaw in predicting the future. Our sources call it a static model, right?
Yes. A century of apocalyptic math is based on static models. Let's look at the Great Malthusian Famine Panic of the 1960s and 70s. Paul Ehrlich wrote The Population Bomb, predicting hundreds of millions would starve because land is finite and population was growing exponentially.
But the static model assumed human behavior and technology never change. Norman Borlaug proved that wrong with the Green Revolution. He engineered semi-dwarf wheat. It was short and stocky, so it wouldn't fall over when they used heavy synthetic fertilizers.
Right. It tripled global grain production using only 10% more land. And then there was the Simon Ehrlich wager in 1980. Ehrlich bet that copper and other metals would skyrocket in price due to scarcity.
And Julian Simon bet they would drop. And Simon won easily. Because of the law of substitution. Copper got expensive, so humans invented fiber optics. We replaced tons of expensive copper wire with hair-thin strands of glass, which is made of silicon, literally the second most abundant element on Earth.
Same thing happened with peak oil in the 2000s. The British said we'd hit permanent economic stagnation. But then fracking and 3D microseismic imaging unlocked massive shale reserves. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the fatal flaw of static models is treating human behavior as a zero-variable constraint.
So what does this all mean? It's like assuming a city will permanently gridlock because there are too many horses, completely forgetting that someone might invent the car. Price signals and physical constraints create immense evolutionary pressure.
Absolutely. But, and this is crucial, just because the apocalyptic math is usually wrong doesn't mean there are no problems.
Exactly. The fake panic actually makes solving the real problems impossible, and this is what our sources call the bag-holding externality. This sensationalism directly hurts the consumer.
Right, because when the media hyperfixates on rage bait, tech companies use that hysteria to dismiss all public oversight as just uneducated panic.
There is this devastating example with a highly respected book, Empire of AI, by Karen Howe. She overestimated a data center's water usage in drought-stricken Chile by a factor of 1,000.
A factor of 1,000. Just because a metric label was missing on a primary source.
And Chile is in a mega drought, so this massive error just weaponized the tech boosters. They used it to dismiss totally legitimate conversations about placing thirsty data centers in water-scarce regions.
Meanwhile, the companies keep their actual water usage and grid connections heavily proprietary under NDAs. The public is flying completely blind.
And the pushback gets messy. Molly Taft noted that a lot of tech lobbyists try to claim local opposition as some sort of CCP AstroTurf campaign, but she says it's mostly just genuinely anxious locals facing these opaque developers.
It creates very strange political alliances, too.
Oh, completely. Bernie Sanders and Ron DeSantis are the two national politicians pushing for data center moratoriums right now. And obviously, we aren't taking any political sides here. We're just reporting what the sources say, but it's a fascinating political reality. It shows this issue is being used as a vehicle for generalized anti-big tech sentiment.
It's the tragedy of the boy who cried wolf, because the media pumps out rage bait. When a community has a legitimate concern, like the actual air quality in Boxtown from unpermitted gas turbines, it just gets lost in the noise of pseudoscientific panic. The average consumer is left holding the bag.
Are we basically just screaming at clouds while the actual foundation of our house is being secretly sold off?
That's a very real danger. And the opportunity cost here is massive. Because if we let sensationalism regulate AI into oblivion, the average consumer loses out on incredible benefits, just like we benefited from the internet despite the 1999 panic.
Yes. Let's talk about the actual benefits because they are staggering. AI is already helping in medicine, math, and science. Look at AlphaFold solving the protein folding problem. That's accelerating drug discovery in ways we couldn't even imagine a decade ago.
And ironically, AI is actually solving the very problems the media is panicking about. DeepMind used its AI to manage Google's data center cooling systems and immediately reduce the energy used for cooling by 40%.
40%. AI is literally optimizing its own footprint, and it's doing the same for the power grid. AI smart grids can predict localized weather patterns for solar and wind generation, routing renewable power perfectly. That directly reduces the need to fire up dirty peaker plants.
Which means less pollution for the minority and frontline communities that usually live near those plants.
Exactly. And the democratizing power of this tech is it's mind-blowing. An AI subscription is, what, $20 a month? That is vastly less expensive than even a single class at a community college.
It's a completely transformative educational tool.
It really is. It allows anyone, minorities, poor whites in rural areas, well-off people, literally anyone, to have an infinitely patient tutor. Whether you're learning Python or just getting assistance with adulting, like writing a resume or deciphering a confusing medical bill.
But if the panic halts data center construction, the cost of computing will skyrocket. The companies will focus on enterprise clients, and the average person will be completely priced out of those benefits.
Which makes you wonder about the media's underlying motives. Are they just chasing clicks? Or is their biggest fear, ironically, that people will start using AI to instantly fact-check their sensationalist reporting?
I mean, if you can feed a terrifying headline into an AI, and it instantly corrects the math and removes the rage bait, the media's entire business model is threatened. AI could make their framing obsolete.
Wow. Okay, so with so much noise and uncertainty, how do we figure out the actual end game of this mass-2 AI infrastructure boom?
Well, this raises an important question because the truth is no one ever really knows how many data centers we'll need in 10 years. It's a wild west.
Right.
Look at the Abilene, Texas example project, Stargate.
Right. Oracle and OpenAI planned this massive campus, permitted a gas plant, and then a year later just abruptly shuffled everything. Oracle dropped out of buildings, Microsoft took over the power plant, contracts are constantly canceled and renewed.
So if the tech companies themselves don't fully know their 10-year needs, why are communities being asked to bear the immediate environmental load without guarantees?
And what if AI models become so hyper-efficient that we don't even need all these physical structures? Are we going to be left with decimated land and abandoned facilities?
That's the real structural issue on the ground.
So for you listening, if you want to protect your community or just understand the economy, you have to stop doom-scrolling the rage bait. The real future is being built in incredibly boring, vital arenas. Pay attention to your local utility board meetings. Look at power projections and actual capital investments, not the headlines.
That is where the reality of this transition is being negotiated.
Okay, let's recap this journey. We started with Elon Musk's Memphis gas plants and the very real constraints of the electrical grid. We dove into the rage economy media that monetizes panic, and we looked at the historical triumphs of human ingenuity, from Borlaug's wheat to fiber optics that constantly break static models.
And we highlighted the real danger of sensationalism, how it blinds us to actual structural issues and threatens to price everyday people out of transformative AI tools.
Tools that are actively solving grid pollution and democratizing education. So, I want to leave you with a provocative final thought. We've talked about human ingenuity overcoming physical resource limits through substitution, right?
Right.
But what if the next great substitution driven by AI isn't physical at all? What if AI gets so good at curating and summarizing information that it entirely replaces the ad-supported attention economy?
Oh, wow.
I mean, think about it. If we no longer have to manually scroll through news feeds, the very media model that generates this apocalyptic rage bait might go extinct. It could literally be starved of the human attention it relies on.
It would be the ultimate irony. The technology they're fear-mongering about ends up solving the problem of fear-mongering.
Exactly. So keep looking past the headlines, keep an eye on your local utility boards, and thank you for joining us on this deep dive.